I'm your host, Carmilla, and this is Cat Scratch Radio, a horror podcast. Hey everybody, this is Cat Scratch Radio. I'm your host, Carmilla Mays, and I'm here with author Brian J. Smith. So, Brian, tell me about yourself.
Well, I live in Ohio. I'm the author of eight, now nine novels. My recent novel was actually, it's a collection of short stories called Strange Discovery and Other Strange Discoveries. It's got 17 tales of weird, dark tales. Excuse me. One's about the care of nature and trees in general, and one is about two sisters that watch a VHS tape and kind of, you know, discover something about themselves. And one's about two brothers who stumble into the wrong house. And one's about a girl who wakes up in a basement and doesn't remember how she got there.
Oh, that sounds fun. So, I have to ask everybody that comes on the show, what is your favorite scary movie?
My favorite scary movie would have to be the original Night of the Living Dead.
That's a good choice. That's a really good one.
Oh, yeah.
So, what inspired you to write and why horror?
Well, I grew up around horror a lot. I was an 80s kid. I remember when Freddy and Jason were starting to come out of the woodwork. And I remember when, a lot of your slasher movies started to come about, Summer Party Massacre, Maniac, all those ones. I remember them coming out. And, of course, I got as far as the cover and got told no. Even at my age, even at like 5, I got told I couldn't watch Day of the Dead.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And because even though before my mother gave birth to me, okay, my parents went to see a double feature at a drive-in that was the original Night of the Living Dead and the original Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I think I was pretty much already indoctrinated to write horror. And I've always wanted to write it because, we've got a lot of scary things out there. You know, we got a lot of scary things out there, whether it be taxes, fear of death, loss of a loved one, loss of a parent. I mean, anything like that. It scares us. Life scares us in general. And, there are authors like me who here's the really scary thing. And here's how, we present them and how we shape them. We can shape anything into something scary,
Yeah, for sure. So, what got you into horror originally?
I loved slasher movies. I loved the ones where there were bugs involved, and there are always bugs involved. I love the bug movies. Your Kingdom of the Spiders, your slugs, frogs, alligator, island claws. That's another one. Empire of the Ants. I love those movies. I thrived on them. I always watched them whenever they came on. I loved them, and I did nothing but I would just watch them all day long and go to sleep like it was normal.
Yeah, I can watch scary movies without having being bothered in my sleep as well. Um, but it wasn't always like that. When I was little, I could watch scary movies and get nightmares. But so what scares you?
I have to say, let's see what scares me most. I'd say I have a fear of flying. I have a fear of heights. I always thought I'd fall I die in my sleep from that. Where you're like half asleep and half out there, and kind of feels like you're falling.
Yeah.
I always think I die from that,
Oh my gosh.
but I got a fear of flying. I I kind of sort of, I don't want to say I almost died about a about 2 years ago, but I felt like I was going to. I really did. I had bad weight problem, bad blood pressure. I couldn't walk 2 feet without thinking I ran 20 miles. I
Oh
was in
wow.
really bad health, and I just, it's fear of death.
Hmm.
Fear of dying before you can make another impact on someone's life. That's what scares me the most. You know?
Yeah, that's a pretty terrifying thing, so I can see why you would be scared of that. So, one of the questions that I really like to ask on my show is where do you think the genre of horror is going to be within the next 5 years?
Oh, it's going to be everywhere. It's not just going to be like, folk horror, queer horror, but we're going to have like children's books with horror in them. Um, I think you're going to see a lot of. I think a lot of people are going to resurrect the old. I want to say the cosmic goth horror. I
Mm,
think that's. I think that's going to come back, like your H.P. Lovecraft, your August Derleth. Those ones. I think I've seen a lot of aquatic horror books come out now lately. Um, Splatterpunk is making a big, big comeback.
yeah, I definitely think we're going to see a lot more splatterpunk in the near future, especially with the Terrifier movies being as popular as they are. Um,
Yeah,
and Terrifier 3 is coming out, I think, this year.
yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna double check because I don't want to be wrong. Yeah, it comes out this year. Comes out in October.
Oh, cool. Just in time.
Yeah. So what are some book or movie recommendations you have for my listeners?
Oh, um, I recommend Off Season by Jack Ketchum. Um, Red Station by Kenzie Jennings. Um, Dead Sea by Brian Keene. Chills by Mary Sangiovanni. You can't go wrong with can't go wrong with Mary. She's you know I've been reading a lot of her stuff lately. I've been reading an audiobook and really good. Of course, I used to read her husband Brian Keene a lot. I read a lot of his zombie novels. Love them. Um, Trying to think here. Gabino Glacius, Devil Takes You Home. Can't go wrong with that one. Let's see here. Crystal Bainham's got some good books out. I think it's Toxic Measures or Toxic. Trying to think of the name of it. I'm sorry, Crystal, if you're listening. um, she's got some good books out. I do recommend um, Carrietta George, Duncan Ralston. Duncan Ralston, you never go wrong with Duncan Ralston.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
boom, I haven't been able to shake that off yet.
So tell me about your most recent work in progress.
Well, I recently finished a supernatural folk horror that went completely off the rails. I had an outline in my head, and the my my other side of my brain decided to go, nope, we're not going to go that route. We're going to go this one here. And I recently finished it. I'll be sending it off today. And I, I've always loved supernatural. I've always loved paranormal. I've had a few ghost encounters of my own and in the past, and I think I still do. And I'm also going to set work on. I've always wanted to do a book about scarecrows.
About scarecrows?
Yeah, I don't think scarecrows get enough. They don't get enough attention.
That's fair. Have you seen or read the book by what is it? Scary Stories to Tell at Night or something like that? Hold on. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yeah,
There's a scarecrow, because it's an anthology in a way, but there's a scarecrow monster in that, and I thought it was really good, really scary.
my sister, she reads a lot of. When she was little, she used to read a lot of Goosebumps. She always tries to get me to do a Goosebumps kind of story book, and I'm like, I haven't read a Goosebumps book. I wouldn't know how to present it. And now my niece is into reading, which is awesome. I mean, I can't say enough about that. I always tell her, I say, if you're inquisitive, pick it up and read it. If you don't like it, you can say that you read it, you know. And
Mm.
I'm going to do something about scarecrows. I'm always doing short stories. I'm always doing short stories. I love doing those. I think I could probably do those a year, all year round. And because last year I did a challenge called 31 Stories in 31 Days,
Oh
and
wow,
I wrote one short story a day for 31 days, and I only got to 25. So
that's still pretty good.
yeah, and I'm thinking about doing it this again this year. Like instead of doing NaNoWriMo,
Hmm.
just do you know SHSST and just try to do a short story a day.
That is a really good idea. You could end up with a collection at the end of the time, the month.
Yeah, and I mean, you never know. Somebody might be looking for a story that you for a story with a specific guideline that you just finished.
Yep,
You know,
definitely. So tell me about your published works. Which one is your favorite?
I'd have to say, Dead River. It's a zombie novel. It's a zombie book. It's a zombie novel. It's about a guy who is trying to find his way out of a zombie infested town, but he'll never be able to find a way to get rid of the guilt inside of him. I don't want to ruin it for people. I don't want to say anything that's going to give too much away. But if you like zombie novels, this is right up your alley. Um, it's it's a wonderful book. I think I went through three drafts, and this book could have been way longer.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like right now it's set at 420 or 421. By the time I got the first draft done, I probably would have had about 800 pages.
Oh wow, that's insane.
Yeah, people were going to me like, "Were you trying to write the Bible?" I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to write a novel." Well, they're like, "Well, see what you can get rid of because that's way too long for some of us to read."
Yeah, a lot of shorter novels are more popular nowadays than long novels.
Yeah, I've noticed that Kindle Vella, people are doing a lot with Kindle Vella, you
Hmm.
know? Like they're starting to like take all these like 200, 300 page books and go, I'm going to release this is going to be the first episode, and that's going to be the second episode, you know?
Yeah, I've been seeing that too, and seeing people who have like published the full novel after a while as well. So, what is something that readers would be surprised to find out about you?
Um, I don't like butterflies.
Oh, that's an interesting. like
I had
fact?
I had a nightmare when I was a kid. Um, I used to like bugs. I used to love them. I had a dream one time where I was running through a meadow and a butterfly landed on my hand, and I raised my hand up to look down at it, and it reared its head back and had these sharp piranha teeth.
Oh my God.
And ever since then, I've been like, okay, never mind. Go on, Mr. Butterfly, fly away. Go, go. That's your space. I'm going to walk around and go over here.
Did you know that when butterflies land on us, they're actually tasting our skin?
Huh,
Yeah, because they eat with their feet.
huh.
Yeah. So, are any of your stories inspired from personal experience?
Um, my novella, Dark Avenues, had a lot to do with grief that I felt because I lost a lot of family a
Hmm.
long, long time ago. I lost my grandmother on my dad's side. I lost my uncle on my dad's side. I lost my mom in 2013, my dad in 2018. And my mom was sort of like my cheerleader. And I kind of dealt with grief enough to know how it felt like. And one of the things I did was I took that grief and I merged it with something I love to do. And I'd like to get back out and do it some more because I love to do headstone rubbings.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I thought about a guy who just he's grieving over the loss of his wife. He does a headstone rubbing, and for some reason, the spirit of this teenage girl is stalking him. She's popping up everywhere. She's whispering things in his ear. She's appearing on people's sidewalks. She's coming into his dreams.
Wow, that.
She's she's just kind of like poking at him, like, "Hey, I'm
Mhm.
trying to get your attention. Listen to me," you know.
Right.
And and we know what it's like to lose somebody. I mean, there's when you lose somebody to a really bad disease, but yet there's a difference when you lose somebody because of they were murdered,
Yeah.
you know, and justice should be, served. Justice should be done. And without a general, you tend to feel a little more like, okay, well, what does she want from him? Why is she poking at him? Why is she trying to get his attention? And the more that you read it, you realize, oh, that's why. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I have personal experience with a friend who was murdered, and that is some of the worst loss I think I've ever experienced.
I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, it was a long time ago now, but it really defined my early 20s. So that aside, what's your favorite form of horror and why?
Oh, I'd say supernatural. I'd say supernatural. I love supernatural because ghosts have so much more leeway when it comes to what they can do to people. So you have vampires. Some of them suck blood. Some of them take your 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 soul. Some of them take your life force. Some of them they do their own thing. And then you got werewolves, and they just they kill for the hunt. And then you got zombies, they like to eat people, and you got cannibals that like to eat people. I think a ghost has a lot more leeway when it comes to messing with your head in a psychological sense. You know,
Yeah, I can definitely see that. There.
because a curtain could be fluttering in the breeze. A
Hmm.
sheet could be fluttering in the breeze. It's just a normal sheet. It's fluttering in the breeze. It's hung out on the clothesline. I think if you've seen the Conjuring movie,
I have.
remember the scene where the sheet flies off and goes around the figure out there with um trying to think of her name. Lorraine Warren. She's out there hanging the clothes up, and the wind just blows that sheet off, and
Mhm.
it wraps around that figure. That to me is like something that can really mess with your head. You know,
Yeah,
they know
definitely.
how to kind of turn an everyday thing, like I said, a sheet or a curtain. A face shows up. Oh, whoa, okay, that's not supposed to happen. You know, you kind of think you're seeing things. You think you're going a little crazy. You're like, okay, what? I need to get out of the house. I'll just get out of the house for a while. I'll go for a walk. I'll go into town, run a few errands. You know, give myself a reason to get out of the house. You know, but then you come back and it's still there. It still lingers. You can sense it in the air. You can sense it in your skin. You know, goosebumps. Your hair stands up. Something tickles the back of your neck, and it's like, okay, it's not me. It's got to be something else.
Yeah.
And I think ghosts have a lot more leeway with us than what people think they do.
Oh, definitely. I think that ghosts can be very scary because there's so many different types of ghosts out there.
Yeah, because there's the ones that that like to mess with you because of something. Then there's some that are like, I used to live here upstate, and you're going, and I'm going to make sure. And then you're like, no, I'm staying. You're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, definitely. So, speaking of favorites, what's your least favorite form of horror?
Wow. Um, I'd have to say, I don't think I have a least favorite. Oh, remakes. Yeah,
Yeah, I could see that. I'm not a big fan of remakes either.
I'm not a fan of remakes. And I mean, if somebody wants to give something a different spin, or if they want to pick up where a movie left off at, I'm cool as long as it makes sense. But to
Hmm.
me, it's like Poltergeist did not need to be remade.
No, no, I did not.
Nightmare on Elm Street
You know,
did not.
I never watched that remake.
Don't, please, just don't. Okay. Um, the Fog did not need to be remade. Um, I'm one of those people that are completely staying away from that new Crow.
Oh, yeah, same. I
It,
want nothing to do with it.
I mean, I've got nothing against Bill Skarsgård. I think he did a wonderful job with Pennywise. Okay,
Hmm.
and he had some big shoes to fill. Some of us grew up with Tim Curry.
Right.
Okay, some of us are like, that guy is not real. Okay, when you look at Tim Curry's Pennywise, you're like that woman on the airplane because that motherfucker, that is not real. You know, you're so scared by it because he gave such a good performance. And then I was I was very skeptic about it at first. I was like, I'm not gonna watch it. There's only one Pennywise. And I'm like, you know, can't judge a book by its cover.
Hmm.
I was very well floored. I was very much like, wow, he pulled that off excellently. Excellent, excuse me, excellent. Perfectly. You know, hats off to him. I'm the one with egg on my face and the L on my forehead. But to me, there will always be one Crow. That's it.
Yeah, I think, and there's so much history around the original Crow, especially the death and everything surrounding it, that there's just, I don't think it can be remade in a way that honors the movie.
Yeah, because I mean, because when they were coming out, they were not originally going to do the reboot. They were going to do more story, more movies, and I was I was watching a segment on YouTube where they were going to get Jason Momoa to play it, which I thought, okay, he's too,
Burly.
yeah, tall and burly, and I mean, I mean, I mean, if you look at his audition tape, he didn't do too bad, but I just don't see him as the Crow. I just don't. I don't see him as the Crow. Um, they were going to do one about a woman. They were going to do one that took place in the Wild West, which I would have loved to see them take place in the Wild West,
Yeah, that would have been really cool.
because that would have had to go back to the origin of what the Crow was doing around the graves. And it's like, oh, well, this guy's the first one. You know,
Hmm.
Brandon Lee is the first Crow, but this one is before Eric Draven. Now we know why this stuff's going on. Now we know why the Crow comes to visit the grave sites, you know?
Right.
And I mean, like I said, Skarsgård is an excellent actor, but that is one movie that should be left alone. Like, you hear rumors about Jaws being remade,
Oh my God.
and you're like, I will riot if that movie is touched, and I will riot. I'm sorry, I'm sitting outside of the studio lot and I'm dancing, going on a hunger strike until they change their mind. That one needs to be left alone.
Yeah,
You know,
I definitely think that that's one that was already perfect the way it is and doesn't need to be touched. So, what is the best piece of advice that you have ever been given?
um, I'd have to say I used to trade correspondence for Dean Koontz, and I used to read him all the time. I mean, Phantoms was a book that got me to write horror. I loved, ever since I read that book in general, I was
Mhm.
like, I got to do it like this. So, and you know, Stephen King had mentions, you know, when he would write, when he would read H.P. Lovecraft, he'd write like H.P. Lovecraft. When he read Ross McDonald, he would try to write like Ross McDonald. But with me, I always tried to write like Dean Koontz, because whereas he showed me the horror genre in a different way, in a different view, I wanted to kind of emulate that. So I was like, okay, so I got a chance to write him back and forth. And I said, how do you know these big words? You know, because I
Mhm.
didn't know what Bougainvillea was. I'm like, what's a Bougainvillea? And I had to look it up. And even my parents were like, what's that? They'd never heard of it. And he gave me an autographed copy of Dean Koontz Companion. And in it, he said, Brian, I don't use a thesaurus. I am a thesaurus. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I ever got, because that was like, you know, I'm going to start becoming a full blown thesaurus now. You know, I'm going to start coming up with big words to say when, you know, a small word always counts. And I'll go up to you know, my niece and nephew will be like, what did you say? I said, um, notwithstanding. And they're like, what's that mean? I said, notwithstanding. I said, look it up. They're like, how do you know what it is? I said, because I'm a thesaurus. And they'll look at me like I'm weird.
Yeah, my brother tends to use big words sometimes, and I'll have to stop him and be like, okay, I don't know what that word means. It's like a 12-letter word. You have to define it for me.
Because I mean, if you go back to H.P. Lovecraft, that man used to use a lot of big words.
Hmm.
And you know, when Dean Koontz was doing it, I was like, oh boy, it's like, okay, got to look up this word here, got to look up that word. I would write down words to look up so I knew what it meant.
That's a really good way to learn a higher vocabulary, though.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So now I have some fun questions for you. Have you ever been to a haunted house? And not like, oh, I've gone to a haunted house that was set up to be a haunted house for Halloween, like an actually considered haunted house.
I've actually gone to a haunted asylum,
Oh, wow.
but I didn't. I knew it was a haunted place. Uh, some friends and I went. Um, it wasn't Waverly Hills in West Virginia. It was another one in Ohio because I live in Chansey, which is 7 miles away from Athens. And Athens supposedly has a haunted asylum called the Ridges.
Oh,
And there's another one in Ohio somewhere. And I met up with some friends of mine, and it was me and like four other people. We were just talking. They're like, "Hey, that place is an asylum. It was haunted. They used to they used to torture people in there." And I was like, "Okay, that's all I needed to know." You know, I'm not one of them people that will go up to Burkittsville Woods to find a witch.
yeah.
If you tell me there's a witch up there, I'm not gonna start walking around her territory. Okay, those are her woods, her place away from the world, and I'm gonna leave her alone.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
they're like, well, these, this lesbian couple was like, hey, I want to go up and see it. Do you want to go with us, Brian? I'm like, I'll tell you what, I'll go to the front of the house, but I won't go in. Oh, come on. I'm like, no, I will not go in. So I walked up with them, and it was like 3 stories high, which I thought was kind of short for a haunted asylum, but it was like a large brick building.
Mhm.
And went up there, and they got to the front door, and the first, of course, I'm Gen X. I'm just kind of standing back there with my arms folded, waiting for these girls to get the crap scared out of them. And they got their camera phones out, and they're looking around. They're sweeping the flashlights across the doorway there. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm kind of like walking up behind them because I can feel something in the air about ready to happen. I can feel it in my gut and my skin. My skin started getting hot, goosebumps, and I'm like, okay, I got to get these two out of here because something's going to happen. I took 2 steps toward that front stoop, and this voice just came out like a rush of air, and it just said, "Go."
That's
I
crazy.
have never seen two people run as fast as they did.
I mean, I think I'd run too. If somebody told me to go, I'd be like, you know what? You're right. Deuces.
And I looked over at them. I said, "What did I tell you?" And they're like telling me, "Oh, just shut up. You didn't know." I said, "I don't have to know. I didn't have to know that something was going to tell you guys to leave. I knew you guys messing around. You were bound to piss somebody off." And then I looked back over my shoulder, and there was this. I remember seeing. It wasn't a ghost. It was like a shadow,
Hmm.
and it looked like a little girl.
Oh, wow.
And you could. I kind of looked over my shoulder. You could see the moonlight on the front stoop, and you could see her shadow being projected out from inside the house across the front porch.
Oh,
And I'm like, okay, we're leaving. Let's go. Come on, guys. Come on, go. They were shaking the entire night. I had to stay up with them until 5 in the morning.
wow. That's very intense. I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like that. So on that note, same kind of similar question. Have you ever seen or felt a ghost?
I've come close, but I've never actually like. I I remember when we came back from California to Ohio. We stayed at this duplex, and it had like a slanted grassy yard. Not really much of a yard, but you could say it was a yard. And I remember hearing drums in the night, in the middle of the night. I'm thinking, okay, we got a guy that lives in the private drive and he's got a drum set. Okay, awesome. But why is he playing it at 1:30 in the morning? That explains, okay, he prefers to play at night. He's a night owl. I totally get it. I would sneak over to my sister's bedroom window and look out and see something moving in the row of pine trees separating our yard from the yard of the next house. Heard it again a night later. Went out the third night and heard it, and it were these two figures in Confederate Civil War uniforms. One
Oh.
was playing the drums, one was holding a musket. You think it was a musket or a musket loader? One of this is one of those, you know, confusing, complicated, you know, rifles,
Hmm.
and they just walked into the trees.
Huh.
At 9 years old, I had no qualms. I had no regrets. I ran downstairs. I opened up the front door, went to step out, and there was a shadow staring down at me that froze me in mid step. And it was wearing Civil War garb. And refused to look. I refused to look up at it. I refused to look up at it. I was like, no, no, I am not looking up at this thing because it's going to scare me into an early grave.
Yeah.
So I just kind of tiptoed back into the house, shut the front door, engaged all three locks, two kitchen chairs, my dad's good metal toolbox. Instead of going upstairs, I ran into the living room and covered myself in two different blankets and just sat there
Oh wow.
until sunrise. Yeah.
That's intense. I think when I was 8 years old, my brother and I and our friends had found an empty, we were going on a hike and we found an empty shed that was covered in chicken feathers and blood
Oh,
and spray painted everywhere. And as we were like, okay, we need to leave this place, this SUV with all tinted black windows started following us down the road.
oh,
And, yeah, and I have looked up the like on the satellite and everything and tried to find that shack and see if it's still there, but I haven't been able to find it.
oh,
Yeah.
that's weird.
Yeah, it was a very strange occurrence for sure.
Because there was a guy. There's a place in Rockbridge, outside of Rockbridge, Ohio. Before you get to Lancaster, it's right down from a gas station. It's called, I think it's called Red Rock or Red Rock. I'm not sure what's. People say it either way. There's a rock leaning against a thin stick, and if the stick is one way, you're allowed to go in. If it's another way, you got to stay out.
Hmm.
And I was reading on the internet where a guy and his friend, they were just joyriding. They went ahead and drove through there, and they parked at this little parking lot. There's a drawbridge that goes across the other side of the property. And he said we heard footsteps on the other end of the bridge, and they were loud and they were very, very thunderous, like there's something heavy coming toward us. So they turned and ran back to their car and did a U-turn and drove away. And he goes, in the mirror, he goes, I will never forget what I saw when I looked in the rearview mirror. There was a man standing there in black shoes, black slacks, a white shirt. He had a black cape on and a pig's nose.
Ooh, that's interesting.
and he was just looking at them in the rearview mirror.
Hmm.
And since then, he will not give that road a second look.
That's fair. There was a road that I grew up near that had taken several lives due to car accidents. It was a dirt road, and at least five people had died within 1 year. And so people would avoid that road at all costs because they thought it was haunted.
Yeah. Huh.
So just moving on a little bit, what is the scariest story you have ever heard?
Scariest story I've ever heard. Talking like a campfire story or just a regular horror story in general.
Just whatever suits your needs here.
Um, let's see. I think Jack Ketchum's The Box is a pretty good short story. That's about it happens on Christmas. It's about this guy who takes his family, takes his son and daughter shopping, like just takes them around for lunch and Christmas, look around for New York. They did an adaptation of this in the movie XXX,
Hmm.
and it was a woman who was the main character. But in the book, it was a guy, and he was out with his two kids, and his son was sitting next to this old man with a walrus mustache, and he looks in the box. He looks in the box that this man's got. The man opens up the box and then shuts it. And there's some strange things that start happening to the boy. He stops eating. He starts acting weird. He's whispering things between, away from the parents. And that is one of those stories that just kind of tugs at you like, what was it he saw that would make him resort to stopping eating, sharing, walking around, just what could cause a lot of strange sudden occurrences just by looking into a box. What was it he saw? And he never told anybody what he saw.
Huh.
And
Go
I
ahead.
think it's that cluelessness that we're left with, which is like, what did he see? What could possibly drive him to these lengths to where he was just such a happy, carefree, boy, because it's Christmas, and now he's like, I don't even want to eat. I don't even want to look at food. You know?
Yeah, that's definitely very interesting because I like mysteries like that where you don't exactly know what causes it. But speaking on that topic of not seeing things, in a scary movie, do you think it's scarier to see the monster or not see it at all?
Not see it at all. Not see it at all. I think uh, just knowing that something is up there, like in the Blair Witch Project.
Hmm.
I heard Jordan Peele talk about this. He said there was plans where, if you remember the part where the tent's flapping, something's pulling on the tent and waking them up out of a in the middle of the night, and they're running down the trail. They're trying to run away from the tent because they know something's out there. They know something's messing with the tent, and it's that he's scene in the movie where Heather is screaming, "What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?" And I guess there was a scene that called for them to go to Heather's camera, and you were going to see a woman in a white gown and
Huh.
long dark hair.
I
And they
don't.
decided to go ahead and just not show her.
Hmm.
That to me made a lot more sense because you don't have to see the evil. You don't have to see evil to know that something is evil. Okay, those
Hmm.
woods are cursed. Okay, those woods are cursed. I don't have to see a woman on a broomstick or a woman with a, wearing a shawl full of, her body covered in horse fur, floating around on legs that never touch the ground, on feet that never touch the ground. I don't have to see that.
Yeah, I can agree. I really like the Blair Witch Project for how it's done. I thought that in the Boogeyman, have you seen Boogeyman, the new one?
Yeah.
You see
No, I
the
haven't.
monster. Oh, okay. So you see the monster, but not until
Wow.
way, way late in the movie.
Huh.
A- And I found that reveal to be spectacular. So,
Huh.
while we're on the topic of scary movies, what do you think is scarier, psychological thrillers or slasher films?
Um, I think psychological. Psychological, they are a lot more scary because there's, like I said, with supernatural, ghosts know how to mess with our heads. Okay. They know how to move certain things, they know how to appear. When it comes to psychological, it's it's usually our mind going off the rails. It's usually our composure, it's our mental health that's at risk. And nowadays mental health is so it is so important,
Hmm.
mental health, care is so important. Like with The Shining, you could sort of classify that as a psychological harm
Oh, yeah, definitely.
because he was getting over alcoholism. They were stuck in that hotel for 8 months. I think it was, yeah, it's from October until May or something like, yeah, October until May. They
Yeah.
were snowed in.
Hmm.
He had no alcohol. He couldn't concentrate. And you could say it was a mix of cost, isolation, alcoholism. You could say it was a lot of those things that messed with his mind and got him to go, I would literally kill for a drink.
Yeah.
And that right there can, the cabin fever, the isolation, the alcoholism, it's like, okay, it's kind of like going to rehab and getting trying to go cold turkey, like the new Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Okay, they were taking her up there to come down from alcoholism. They wanted to do their version of rehab.
Hmm.
And at first, they thought she was seeing shit. She was seeing stuff. They're like, no, look, you're having a fit, you're having a twitch, you're coming down. It's only in your fucking mind.
Hmm.
Okay. And I think that in a way there, psychological horror tend to hit at the core of something when it comes to that. You know, it can play on your mood, it can play on your weakness, it can play on something that you care about, that you're trying to get over. Alcoholism, drugs. Um, you can talk about The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. That's another good. I think that's a good psychological horror
Oh, yeah.
because she's going up there to get over the depression of losing a child, of
Hmm.
of and she starts seeing things. She starts seeing stuff that's not there. She starts seeing faces in the wallpaper, and she's scratching at it. And I mean, that's where psychological horrors kind of tend to one up the slasher genre. Now, the slasher genre has a certain, it's got its place in horror, you know, it's got its place in horror because I remember back in the 80s when Jason was coming out and he was killing campers while they were having sex and doing drugs. You know, the church the church community thought he was He was a symbol
Hmm.
for them. He was telling teenagers, no more, no premarital sex. Stop doing drugs, or you're gonna die. And the church community thought that he was a symbol of that. People are going, no, he's just mad.
Right. Well, he's
He's
being up.
mad because he drowned. The counselor should have been
Mhm.
watching. He drowned. He's angry, you know?
Yeah.
So where you have the slasher genre at its finest, has this place in horror, I think psychological is a lot more deeper because you have a lot more to lose.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I write a lot of psychological horror myself, and I don't do it on purpose. It just sort of happens.
Yeah,
But I think the psychological is horror is a lot more like scary than slasher films as well.
yeah, because I mean, like you could be, you know, you could see something that's not that I mean, and what's worse is you're the only one that sees this. Nobody else around you sees this.
Hmm.
You know, you are the only person that sees this because whatever is, like with The Shining, he was the only one at first that only saw Lloyd the bartender. He was the only one. He was, and with yeah, with the yellow wallpaper, she was the only person that saw faces in the wallpaper. Nobody else did. So whatever you say is going to come off completely different than what they're seeing, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So, where can my listeners find your work and you?
My books are on Amazon.com. Some of them can be public, some of them can be bought through Godless.com, where two of my ebooks are at. Able Cookie Publishing. I've got my book, Bad Allergies, is through them. Most of my books are on Amazon. I'm on Facebook under Brian J. Smith. I'm on Instagram and Threads under Horror Author 9. Um, I'm on, I think, Blue Sky under Horror Author 9 as well.
Awesome. I went ahead and gave you a follow on Threads while I was at it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Brian. I had a really good time listening to you talk about your experience with like the haunted asylum and ghosts and everything, as well as hearing about your work.
Well, thank you for having me. And if you ever want to have me back again, let me know.
Will do. Thank you. You've been listening to Cat Scratch Radio, a horror podcast with your host, Carmilla Mays, also known as Matu C. Lawrence. If you want to find me on social media, just look up MX Carmilla.